Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Mindset Matters. We are back with another episode of He Said, She Said with Jordan Beckler. Hey, Jordan. How's it
Hey,
going?
how's it going, Vic? Good to see you again.
Yeah, things are going well for you. Are you feeling a bit more settled in
Yeah,
your
definitely,
current
definitely.
teaching?
Yeah, it looks like the weather you have in Canada is good, but when I see those snowy days that you guys have, and I look outside and it's beautiful and sunny here in Australia, I definitely feel unsettled here.
Good. Yeah, I know you mentioned having like a new school that you're at and it's super modern. Are you feeling like you have a good handle on things now?
Yeah, definitely. It takes a while, and I think when you start something new, when you're in a new job, you don't even know what you don't know yet. You figure one thing out
Mm.
as a time, and then you feel like you're all settled, and then the next week there's a whole new challenge, a whole new process. But that's part of the fun, I think. So, but yeah, I'm loving life here right now.
Good. I'm loving that for you. Yeah, I feel like I can definitely relate to just you don't know until you get there and you have to kind of figure it out.
Yeah, and sometimes you just don't know, but that's okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
true. There's a lot of that going on.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, today we kind of wanted to talk a bit about risk taking and kind of from my perspective, I guess the importance of taking risks in life and how to learn to take more risks, either big or small. I know that looks different for different people. And I kind of wanted to talk about cost benefit, wanting to make the right choice, and how to kind of go through that process. And also just thinking versus doing, because we, just like we mentioned, don't always have the right answers. So that's kind of what we're going to dive into today.
I'm looking forward to it because, obviously being your friend for a while, listening to your podcast and kind of seeing, we talked about this when we caught up over the Christmas break, like seeing you kind of like evolve to become this super brave person. It's been so interesting for me. And I hope that I can kind of give a perspective because sometimes when I hear you say things or you talk about your experiences, my reality is like, I don't know if I could ever do that. And I mean, you've taken some incredible risks. I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit about that in this podcast, but I am someone who's struggled with risks on my own end. So, I'm hoping we can kind of give some different perspectives here.
I love it. Well, thank you for saying that. That's so nice. Yeah, I definitely feel like the last year has definitely been a big one for me. And that's something we could talk about too is I feel like once I started to take risks, it kind of snowballed and I felt more comfortable. So that's kind of also just growing your comfort zone. So we'll get more into that, I'm sure. But would you say generally you've kind of been more of a risk adverse person throughout your life? Like, talk to me about that.
The way I've looked at it, and I was reflecting when you told me, we were going to come on, we are going to talk about risks. I have avoided risks kind of my whole life, and I think the reason why is I don't like jumping into something unless I can foresee the outcome. I want to, and I know that sometimes I can't always control, but I want to know what my likely possibilities are before jumping into something. If I'm buying a stock, if I'm buying a property, if I'm going out for a night with friends, I want to have a very good idea of what is going to happen. And I think as we go on this podcast, we'll talk about. I have tried a pretty big risk here in the last little while, but that's kind of been my approach: is try to know exactly what outcome you're going to get or what the likely outcomes are, and make sure you're okay with what those outcomes could be before you jump into something. So that's been my approach, but obviously you've had a different approach, so maybe you could tell me
Yeah.
about that.
Okay. Well, I like what you said about weighing like your options. That's something I definitely do because in some ways I am kind of I you're describing yourself to me as like more of an analytical thinker. Like you want to, look at the outcomes, look at the possibilities. And that's something that I've definitely done as well. And I used to be more that type of person where I'm like, okay, like, well, why am I doing it? Or what's the point? Or, you know, yeah, like what is going to happen? And I think I don't know, the past few years have just taught me that there's so much unpredictability in life and there's certain things you can't really prepare for. And I do agree with you where I think it's good to weigh the pros and cons or look at different outcomes and like you said be okay with the possibilities when making a decision. And that's more like bigger decisions. Like, yeah, you want to think about that. But at the same time, I think so many people get lost in the weighing those pros and cons and making their, should I do A or B? They make their list. And then they just spend so much time ruminating in the possibilities that then they just don't take action. And then like the possibility might like pass you by that point.
Yeah,
Can you
I
relate to that?
I resonate with that on all levels. Like even something as simple as ordering dinner, like Uber Eats. It's like, okay, I can either get Thai, I could get Japanese, and it's like, oh yeah, but what if I order this Thai and then it's not good? Like it's gonna suck. I
Oh
spent
my god.
all this money on it, and then I look at my clock and I'm like, oh my god, it's 8:30 p.m. I've been looking at this for an hour and a half, and it's all
Yeah.
about I was so afraid of just making the wrong choice that it was almost like I wasn't allowing myself to make that to have the
A
opportunity
choice.
to make a good choice, right? So
Yeah.
yeah,
Or
that's
just
something
make
I'm
any
definitely.
choice.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Do you find your girlfriend now, is she more decisive than you?
I wouldn't say that she's more decisive, but what she is more. She's okay with making wrong choices. Like it
Mm.
doesn't weigh on her if to take a risk and to live with the
Okay.
consequences. She's definitely a people pleaser,
Okay.
which is kind, but she is a lot more patient. Like I have anxiety and stress over a choice, where I
Okay.
find that she's a little bit more of a calming presence. So that's been a good help, I'd say for sure.
Okay. Sounds like that could balance it out. Because I feel like I'm the type of person too where I'm okay making a choice. And I always tell myself, like, there's almost no wrong choice. Like, in a way, everything could be seen as like a lesson. And obviously, like, there's higher risks in saying that for certain things. But it's like, okay, if you order the food and it's not good, you just won't order it again. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
What if the other food you would have ordered also would have been bad? Like, you
yeah,
can't say that that would have been actually better if you didn't experience it.
yeah,
So that's for me where I'm like, try to get quicker at making decisions.
yeah. Yeah, honestly, you had a podcast. It was earlier this week where you talked about making friends as an adult, and it's a really good podcast. So if anyone's listening to this, go check that one out. But you said something on there near the end where you talked about the importance of letting life flow, not trying to control every friendship you have, right? Like allow
Mm.
life to kind of come to you. And when you were saying that, it felt like you were talking directly to me. Like it resonated with me so much. And the reason why is, as I've mentioned, I've tried to in my life control every aspect. Like I want to see as close as I can to the finish line with everything in terms of,
Mm.
something as small as my friendship, something as big as my career, my traveling. I want to know exactly what's going to happen. And I started to realize while that was happening, like how kind of boring that life can be.
Mm.
And the way I looked at it, I think the best analogy I can is think back to our uni days, Vic. What was the best? Remember nights when we would go out? If you're going out to Phil's, you're going out whatever. What was the
Yeah.
best part of the night out for you?
Probably getting pizza and coming home.
Okay, you like coming home. You like the end of the night. For
Yeah.
me, and I bet a lot of people can resonate with this, it was the pre. It was being with your
Mm.
friends and being like, what's gonna happen? Who's gonna be there? What music are we gonna hear? What are we gonna get up to tonight if we see these people? The wondering about what if was the
Yeah.
best part. And I even think back even before that when I was a kid, the Christmas morning. It was so amazing to not know. I've seen that gift. What is it?
Mm.
But in the last 5 years, I've known exactly what Christmas presents I ask for my very like this is what
Yeah.
I want. No surprises, just get me this. And it's nice, but it's not as fun as exciting as life was when I didn't know. So
Yeah.
I think that's kind of a long-winded way of saying it's so much more exciting of a life to not control everything and to live and let things flow, as you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And whereas I still struggle with that, I am trying to embrace that and remind myself of that. And I think it can bring such a more exciting and fulfilling life when you do actively try to live that way.
Yeah, I love that. And it makes me even think of when you go on vacation, like, okay, you're going to plan what you do generally. And I'm definitely like, I want to make the most of my time somewhere. So I'll plan out my days. but leaving like at least half a day or one day to be like, okay, let's just not make plans on this day and just like let life flow, or like see what happens. Maybe you met someone that you didn't expect to meet and then you could have time to meet up. But if you're so rigid in like all your scheduling, then yeah, there's no time to like just let things kind of come to you.
Yeah. No, I've definitely been the traveler you've described where it's like, I want to have every day planned. We have to do
Mm-hmm.
this, this, and this. But when I think of my best trips, going with friends, going with my girlfriend, it's, we didn't really plan to go do this thing, but, we talked to someone and they recommended it, and that ended up being the best part. So, yeah, trying to
Totally.
let go of control, as you always talk about, and just, live in the moment and embrace it's one of the best things you can do to tackle risk taking and feel comfortable taking risk taking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's all about balance. Like I have a friend who traveled like for 6 months, and she only planned the first like few days, and she
Wow.
just winged all of it. Like that I could never do, and I'm always like, wow, shout out to her, Tess, if you're listening, because she's like, I'm like, I could never just go and completely have no control or no idea,
Yeah.
but I also think her mindset on that was like, well, I don't know, I've always kind of just figured it out and it's always worked out for me. So I figured I will just like see what happens. And she's super social too. So I think making friends is easy for her. So like that part of it, you know,
Yeah. So I
she
think
thrives.
I think that's kind of the dilemma here, is what you described. It's kind of easy for her. So I mean, you're someone who, knowing over the last 10 years, if you had asked me 10 years ago, like, oh, is Vic going to be taking all these risks she does now? Maybe I didn't know you super well when we were in university, but you seemed like a far more, you know, you were in your own lane. You kind of had your own bubble. I wouldn't have assumed that you would be where you are right now, where you are
Yeah.
taking risks almost every day. You've taken
Mm-hmm.
massive risks in your life. So, what kind of advice would you have for someone like me? Because it seems like risks are easy for you now, but I don't know if it's been that way your whole life. What
Yeah.
advice would you give to people who it's not easy to take these risks that you're describing?
Well, I think it might be important to kind of start by taking small risks. I find if you're really risk adverse or if it's like really hard for you, I think starting by just slowly expanding your comfort zone is a good place to start. So, okay, maybe it is eating at a new restaurant or like taking yourself to a new place and not planning it and just saying, okay, I'm going to walk around. And it could be somewhere super close by. It doesn't have to be like you're traveling far. And maybe expanding your social circle in a small way by like joining a new hobby or going to an event that's kind of slightly out of your comfort zone.
Yeah,
I think anything where you can't fully plan exactly what's going to happen and you kind of just have to show up and like let yourself like go through it, and then you can decide, hey, that thing actually wasn't for me. But
mm,
I think there's a satisfaction you can gain in just knowing like, wait, but I tried something new and I didn't really think about it too much.
yeah.
Actually, I don't know if you would have seen me talk about this, but I went to a dinner for strangers the other week.
I saw you post about it on TikTok. Yeah, I saw the range of
Okay.
emotions you kind of went through with that, which was so
Yeah, it was
interesting.
such a weird, it was really cool, but it was literally like I bought the ticket that day. And that was honestly a big deal for me, even. Like, as someone who, seems like I'm good at taking risk, it was one of
Yeah.
those things where I was like, oh,
So wait,
there's a ticket. Like,
can you tell me maybe more about it? Because I saw the TikTok, but maybe for those who didn't, like, was that something you had looked into in the past? And like, why did you choose to even do something? You bought it that day. Like,
okay.
that's a pretty risky thing to do.
Yeah, okay, let's go back.
Yeah.
So recently I actually next week's podcast, it will already be out by the time this is out, but it was with a man named Jan Keck, who we talked a lot about asking deep questions, connecting with others. He really helps people and businesses build community and like get past small talk, and that's kind of his deal. So definitely check that out. He's awesome. But me and him were chatting, and he actually mentioned this woman named Jess who runs these dinner for strangers. He's like, if you're looking to expand your social circle, she does these dinner for strangers. And so I had just learned about her like within a week of me actually going, and I was kind of looking at her Instagram. I saw that tickets were all sold out for this dinner, and I kind of saw a few TikToks of people talking about how her event like has been gaining traction and it sells out really fast. But essentially, the premise is there's like 20 strangers who show up at this event space. There's like some apps, some cocktails, some like conversation, and then you get into dinner. And the whole premise is you can't talk about work, so none of us know what each other do.
Wow.
And there's a theme where she will kind of guide us through these questions, and we'll go around the table and like everyone will answer. Yeah, so I
Wow.
actually reached out to her and I'm
So
hoping she'll come on the podcast.
I kind of envisioned like speed dating, but what you're
Mm-mm.
describing is kind of more of like a group dynamic to
Yeah,
it.
yeah, it
Oh,
was definitely more of a group. Like at first there was time to kind of mingle and like people were just like talking to whoever. And then
well,
at the dinner it was very centered around like we're listening to every single person speak, which is a really
okay,
nice
but
way to
come on,
make sure that
were people awkward during that? Like, I can see
um
you killing it, but I would imagine there's people from all different ends of, the
yeah,
social
but you
spectrum
know
there.
what? Yeah, and I think just what she does is a great job is like at the beginning for like the mingling part, we all had a question card
Mm,
where it was like mine was what's something you're high maintenance about,
mm.
which I love because it's like some people said, "Oh, I'm really high maintenance with my tea." Like boiling my tea at the perfect temperature. And I'm like,
Oh,
okay, that's new to me. One girl said, "Oh, I'm super high maintenance about my bed. Like I change my bed sheets like twice a week and I buy the nice sheets and everything." I'm like, "Okay."
yeah,
So, we kind of had already gotten to know each other a little bit mingling that
yeah,
like at
yeah,
the dinner part, it was like a safe environment
right.
to kind of just
So were
and you
people
didn't
on their,
have to go super deep, but
yeah, were people on their phones and stuff, or like were phones away? Like,
no, like we were just all engaged with each other. It was really
okay.
cool.
So tell me, like,
So,
why was that something you were kind of looking for?
yeah, I feel like I've been in a place where I'm kind of wanting to branch out and try to meet some new people.
Mm,
And so I've been kind of looking for spaces to do that and not knowing where to go because I'm not the type of person to just like walk up to strangers on the street,
yeah,
typically, as I think is hard for a lot of people. But I heard about this and then the ticket came available and I was like, well, this sounds like it could be really fun. Like you never know who you could meet. And
yeah,
I kept telling myself this is a good point for people who are always saying like, well, what if? And they're saying, what if it goes wrong? What if
right,
it's terrible? What if I'm super awkward? Okay, but flip it to say like, well, what if I meet someone that I really click with and like we become friends?
yeah,
What if it's just like super fun and you know what? What if I don't like it? Okay, well, then it was still an experience. Like,
yeah.
either way, not everything is going to be a pleasant experience, but I think rarely is it that horrible that you, like, are super upset?
Yeah. Yeah, it's really cool. I got to see if they have something like that in Melbourne. But yeah, what you said is kind of, for those of your listeners, I guess, who don't know me, like I've taken the big risk I've taken this past year is moving to Australia. And, if you know me, if you're my friends, my family, they were shocked that that was something I've done because I just don't take risks like that. And, the thing you said, so if it doesn't go well, like, okay, it's an experience. That sounds all nice and dandy to me, but it's been something really hard for me to accept as a possibility. Like, what if things don't work? And, to come out here, I did, I chased a girl. It has worked out so far, but, when I was making that decision, if I was going to come out to Australia, I was leaving my condo, which I own. I was leaving my job, which I've worked hard for to work at. I was leaving my family and friends who mean the world to me. And, when I was looking at that, I knew that, okay, this could work out and it could be great and it could be the best decision I ever made. But I also knew this might not work out and I will have, you know, left my job. I will have, put myself in a tough situation, possibly financially. If I got to fly there, fly back, I leave a job, I could be out of work for a couple of months. Like this could be a big risk. And I think the way I had to look at it was you'll be okay if it doesn't work out.
Yes, I love that.
You'll be okay. Like, yeah, you know what? You might lose a couple $1,000s. You might spend a couple, months away from your friends. That could be hard. I'm not trying to belittle how hard that was. That's been really hard for me. It's something I still struggle with being away from friends and family. But if those things happen, And, you know, maybe not everyone could have made that decision if they're in a different financial situation. But if you can really look at it and say, let's imagine if everything doesn't work out, if it goes wrong, you can just come home. You'll be okay. You just start all
Yeah.
over again. You go pick up where you're at, or you adapt, but you'll be okay. You'll figure it out. And I think
Yeah.
the sooner I learned that when things don't work out and you give yourself a chance, you know, it's back to that, you know, 7-year-old Christmas morning. What could happen? It was so exciting moving to a new country, you know, chasing a girl that's really excited me. Um, that what if of what could happen was so much more exciting than the what if it doesn't work out. And for me, it just
I
felt worth
love
it.
that. And
Yeah.
I think like life should be exciting. Like you mentioned earlier, like life is so much more fun when you don't know every single detail. And I think that's something that's been a big part of my life the last year is like I don't want to know everything, but I still want to go for the things that I
Mm.
think will make me happy. And I think that's why I've been also able to take risks. Like even starting the podcast, it was literally you telling me to do it. And I was like, hey, that sounds fun. Okay.
Yeah.
And here we are, like almost a year later. And I'm like, I'm loving
Crazy.
it. And it's, you know, it's a fun thing for me. So,
Yeah. And like the podcast, I mean, yeah, that's an amazing thing, but you've taken risks in so many directions. Um, and yeah, I don't know, would you feel comfortable kind of sharing some of the other risks you've taken as, you know, we've connected of being teachers together, being friends, but you have branched your life out in so many different ways. Like, I think it'd be great if you could share some of those.
okay. Well, I guess the one kind of big leap of faith that I'm taking right now is that I'm going to be starting my own business.
Ooh.
And last week on the podcast, by the time this is out, that one will have out, I kind of touched on starting my own coaching business, and I'm launching what is called the Mindset Mastery course. And
Incredible.
it's an 8-week coaching program. So I'm going to help you completely transform your mindset and help you, you know, build tools to actively shift your thoughts from negative to positive, to learn to be more resilient and optimistic. Definitely when dealing with risks is definitely one of those options. Seeing yourself as like resilient and capable, and also understanding your habits and having the tools to kind of confidently take action with intention and therefore create a better life for yourself. So that's kind of the gist of what I'll share. Do you have questions
Yeah, I
that came
do.
up?
I think that's
Okay.
amazing. First of all, so congratulations. You know, I have two main questions. One from the logistical side, like, are
Okay.
you've obviously been a teacher. You've talked lots about it on your podcast. Is that something you're still going to be able to do? Is teach while you start this business?
Yeah, so for now, yes.
Okay, cool.
And then we'll see. I think my vision is that I would love to just be doing the podcast and
Okay,
like being able to do coaching
yeah,
and scale it enough. So we'll see what happens with that. That's definitely been on my mind as a possibility and something I still have to kind of work out.
good.
But yeah.
Yeah. And then my second one. This is kind of more of a big picture. The first time I was on your podcast back in last June, um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we talked about mental health and therapy, and I talked about, you know, how it was so impactful for me. But I think I needed therapy maybe 5, 6 years ago, and it was so hard for
Mm.
me to just call and sign up and go. And I was
Yeah.
hoping maybe you could tell us, because when you say life coaching, for me, I'm lumping that right in with therapy. So am I wrong about that? Are there any
Mm.
differences?
Yeah, well, from my perspective, so therapy is a lot of time with therapy, I think it's more like going back and unlocking kind of like the reasons for being the way you are, and whether that's things that happened in your childhood. And, you know, I'm definitely not a therapist, so that's something else. But yeah, like I've done counseling in my own experience. And yeah, I think everyone has a different approach, but I think therapy is more, yeah, kind of looking back on, okay, what happened that has maybe
Okay,
caused you to be risk adverse?
right.
Or is it just your personality? Or is there things that have, you know, childhood trauma that happened that kind of led you to be this type of way or have, you know, certain anxieties around certain things?
Mm,
Um, Whereas coaching, it's more like we're looking at where you are now
mm,
and kind of where you want to go. So for me, I would say like my ideal client is someone who's like realizing, you know what, I'm really negative or I'm not feeling satisfied with how
mm,
things are going. and like, yeah, I do want to make a change, and they're ready to kind of dive into the program. And for me, it's really shifting thoughts into words into actions, and that's kind of the journey. And there's gonna be more information coming out all about the course, and the whole month of March I'll be sharing, a lot more about it.
Yeah, that's
But
exciting.
does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it really does. That's so exciting, and yeah, you'll be incredible at that. So my second question, um, again, when I was starting therapy, it was something I honestly needed 5, 6 years prior to me starting, and there was always a million reasons as to why not.
Mm.
This is embarrassing. I don't want anyone to know. It was just this big hurdle to overcome to just start, and then once I did start, it was like I couldn't stop talking about it. I didn't want to stop. It was the best thing. Now, again, you've kind of illuminated the differences between therapy and life coaching, but I could imagine that there are people listening to this right now. Um, they love the idea of going to life coaching, but it's something that they're not necessarily willing to embrace, or they're scared of how to approach you or just start. So,
Mm-hmm.
what kind of advice could you give to someone to take that risk, as we're talking about, and just jump into life coaching?
Yeah, well, something I'll definitely offer is going to be just like a free discovery call, so we can, if you check out more of the program once it's all the information is there and you're liking how it sounds and you think, wow, like this could be something that, could be for me, then I think the first step would definitely just be reach out. We'll do a quick like one-on-one call, and we'll see if like we're a fit to work with, and if I feel like you are kind of ready to take this plunge too. So I'm definitely open to answering all those questions, before anyone is like signing up for something. Um, but I think, yeah, just also looking out for other kind of little webinars that I might do. Like I have a lot of ideas of how I want to start, even just like building more of a community around like clients and stuff, and bringing some people in. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of different opportunities, I think, to engage with me and see if my program is something that's going to resonate with you, because I think, you know, just like picking a therapist, like picking someone to be, a life coach or a mindset coach, like you want to make sure that you agree with their philosophies and that it is a right fit. So that's something that I think we can explore. And just like, yeah, following along on my social media, I'm going to start posting about all this stuff soon. By the time this is out, I'll have some droplets of information.
Right?
So,
That's
yeah.
amazing. That's so exciting, Vic. Yeah, not to say like I'm proud, and it's just cool to see. And yeah, I wish you all the best with that. And I know you're going to be great. And I hope
Thank you.
that if you're listening to this right now and you're like, oh, this sounds cool. Do I send her a message? Just do it, because that's an incredible opportunity. And what you're saying, where you have that free opportunity to check in. If you're
Mm-hmm.
risk averse like me, that seems like a pretty safe bet to check
Yeah,
in and see if it works for you.
for sure. And I think, I don't know, I also want to say, like, we're talking about taking risks. Like, this feels like a big risk to me, and it does
Yeah.
feel scary. And it's kind of for me this thing of like, okay, I guess I'm feeling the fear, but doing it anyways. And I think if I don't go for it, I'll never know if it could work out. And that's also kind of the gist of like what I want to teach people. So I think me as like a real person, like I've kind of gone through the motions of all the things that I want to teach on the course. And so, I've been there where I haven't felt satisfied with how things are going, or I was
Mm.
super negative or complaining. So these are all kind of elements that we bring in to help people just live more optimistically. And,
Yeah, I think
you
that's
know,
great. And I think, I can think of people, and I've been that person where you're going through that rut, and, it seems like things are just not working out. It's not going your way. You can't get a good bounce. And, the harsh reality is those can be tough people to be around sometimes. And it's like, I've had friends, and even, more people that I've worked with, where every conversation you have with them is just focused on a negative, and it's
yes,
focused on, oh, I should have got that promotion, or you know, I should have met someone by now, or I should have, and that sucks the energy out of other people. And
exactly.
the best thing you can do is try to make positive choices for yourself. And what you're describing right now with life coaching, I think, um, if you're not happy with how things are going, make decisions that are going to improve your life. And this sounds like a great opportunity. So, yeah, good for you
Mm-hmm.
for taking that risk. That would have been something I struggled with, but I'm so excited to hear how it goes. And a month from now, I'm excited when we get back on here and chat to see how you're doing with it. So that's great.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm really excited. I have one more question for you.
Cool.
So, since moving to Australia, which was a big risk for you, and obviously all the things we talked about, and I'm so proud of you for like going for it because you describing like, I need to know all of the things, and then
Hmm.
you being like, well, like, okay, I'm just gonna go chase the girl, chase the dream, see what happens.
Yeah.
Do you feel like since then there's been other times you've been more willing to take risks, or even on your travels, you've been like trying to leave opportunities for those what if exciting times?
Yeah. Honestly, yes. Being here, it is literally, we hear this phrase all the time, force me out of my comfort zone. I don't have any of my friends and family here. I don't have anything routine based from, I'm in a complete different country, a complete different time zone. Nothing here looks familiar. I've had to take risks every day since being here. I've had to form new friends. I've had to start a new job. I've traveled to completely different places. I've been to Japan. I've been to New Zealand. I'm going to Thailand and Vietnam. Like, these are things that I always wondered what if, but the flight's so far, it's so expensive. And it's almost like, once that one, you get off over that first hurdle, like, okay, I took a big
Mm-hmm.
risk and it worked out. It just seems more likely that the risks you were going to take will work out. It's almost like you set up this
Yes.
mind hurdle that it's not going to work out for me. It's just not going to. But you're like so often in your own way. So yeah, I've been
Yeah.
taking risks far more often. For example, when I used to be at work and back in Ontario, I would never go eat in the staff room. It was like I don't want to go socialize with people. I know I have my 2, 3 friends here at work. I'm gonna chill with them. I mean, every single day I go to the staff room and I talk to someone different at work.
Love it.
And it's just not, I can't even believe that's something I do. And, I'm not trying to preach here by any means, but I just think once you get over that first hurdle, that first risks just seem a little less scary.
I love it. And again, telling yourself it's gonna work out, like for me, that's like half the battle. Like
Yeah.
as soon as you look at things positively, like you kind of start to notice that things actually do start working out, and you're like,
Yeah.
wait, like okay, I can do this. And so for me, I just always believe, yeah, it's working out. It's gonna work
Yeah.
out,
And I think
and that to
too,
me helps. Yeah.
yeah. And I think too, and I mean, sometimes when we think about risk, yeah, we're making a big life decision, like moving across the world. Sometimes it's something as simple as I'm talking about of, hey, I'm going to introduce myself to new people. And I think, yeah, we're talking about how it can work out, but I think sometimes we have to remind ourselves not to sound morbid that, how insignificant we are to people that we don't know. Like if
Mm.
I awkwardly introduce myself to someone and they're give me a look and it's okay, that's not a friend, that's not someone. Okay, so move on. They're
They're
probably
gonna
not that
forget
nice.
about it.
Yeah, they're gonna forget. They're obviously not that nice of a person. You don't want to interact with them. So it's like, don't think that you matter so much to everyone
Mm.
that you should get in the way of taking a risk. Like, take risks for yourself. Don't worry about how it's going to be perceived by someone else. Do it for your own good to better your own life. That's the way I approach it.
Yeah, I love that. And I feel like that's actually something I need to hear because I'm getting close to that point of like, okay, I'm launching this course, so I'm going to have to like talk about it.
Out
And
there, yeah,
that is the thing. I'm like, oh my
yeah,
God, I have to put it out there, right?
yeah,
And that is the scariest part for me. Like, I think for me, making the course and like building it out and like spending these months, like making sure it's something that I'm proud of has been
yeah.
great. But then, yeah, it's like that point of, oh, I actually have to like post about this and
Okay, can
talk
I ask you
about
a question
this.
about that? So
Yeah.
I know we're getting close to wrapping up, and this might be a bit off topic, but I've wondered from your perspective, like you have to really promote your podcast. Really, you're gonna have to really promote your,
Mm-hmm.
life coaching business now. And I'm sure when you post about it on social media, yeah, you're getting a lot of people responding. This is incredible. That's great, Vic. But I'm sure
Yeah.
you're aware that there are either friends, people who are not so close friends. Like we have all these people following us on social media that we
Mm-hmm.
don't even interact with. I'm sure there are people that send it to each other and be like, "Oh my God, can you believe she's doing this?" Do you
Oh,
think about that, or is that something
no.
that is not? You don't even worry.
I've never thought about someone sending my stuff to other people and being
Huh,
like talking smack about it because I think I just don't really care.
nice.
I mean, okay, like I've definitely received some like mean messages on like or like comments on like TikTok. That's more random
Yeah,
people, but I've never had someone I know say anything to me like what are you doing? Um but I don't know. I think I follow people who I like how they present themselves or I see people doing new things and I feel like that encourages me to also do new things.
right.
But yeah, like thinking about it, I'm sure there are people who when I first started were like what the heck is this? And that's fine. But yeah, I don't really think about that to be honest. And I think I've built myself up to be pretty confident to be able to like do this
Yeah,
kind of stuff, I
right.
think. And so
Yeah, I
it's
think
just
like,
not something that's
that's
on my
such a
mind.
that's clearly such a mindset for you, which is obviously the whole ethos of this podcast. And yeah, I
Yeah,
think that would be something a lot of people could really benefit from learning from you because I know myself, I know a lot of people, they would worry about promoting something like that and wondering,
totally.
what are people saying? Do people think this is weird or that I'm not good at this? So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's just
And I've
another,
thought about that
yeah,
for the course more so. Like, I think the podcast was more something that felt I was okay with. But yeah, I think putting myself out there in this new way of being like, hey, I'm starting a business, like the imposter syndrome
mm,
kind of feelings, like I've definitely kind of felt that of like, oh, I do have to promote this. Like that part is scary to me.
yeah,
But I think for me, it's more like, well, if I want this for myself, then I have to get over it.
sure,
And I know that the people who support me will support me.
yeah,
And if someone doesn't resonate with it, that's okay.
right,
And if someone's going to be mean behind my back, like that's not someone I want in my life anyways. So
yeah,
I don't really think about that. Yeah.
such a good approach. That's cool. Yeah, well, also, Vic, I'm really looking forward to seeing you start promoting it and just hearing from you on how it's going. So, best of
Love
luck.
it.
I'm excited for you.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening to us talk about risk. And hopefully, this inspired someone to do something new. Whether it's so small, you guys can take the smallest risk and just start to expand your comfort zone, and it will do wonders for you. So, thank you for listening, and we will see you again soon.
See you, Vic.